and welcome to the 6th installment of the Piano Lessons 1, 2, 3 lecture series. I'm Ryan Neubauer, and if you're joining me today, you have purchased the full series. Thank you for that. Today we're going to talk about key signatures as well as formulas for the minor scales and triads. Let's begin. Okay, so I am not going to make it easy for you to learn what a key signature is. Instead, we're going to sort of derive what a key signature is and why they exist. If you remember back to lesson 5, we have a formula for the major scale, 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1. And what I have given you is degree 3 of an unknown scale. So what we have to do is use this formula to make this major scale since we are given the 3rd degree. Now, this is a unit of space. So this is measuring the space between different pitches. If we know the 3rd pitch, we can back calculate the remaining 6 pitches of this major scale. So if you think about it, the 1st pitch, wherever it would be, should be a whole step away from the 2nd pitch, which should be a whole step away from the 3rd pitch. So what we really want to do is go a whole step down from this B, a whole step down from B. We'll stick with yellow. Whole step down from B is A, right? B down to A. Now, a whole step down from A is what? Well, A, 2 half steps, G. So degree 1 is G. That means we are constructing a G major scale. So we can also put G over here. Now, B should be a half step away from the next note. So a half step up from B is C. And now hopefully it's clear that having this keyboard either visualized or drawn out is quite useful. Alright, so C should be a whole step away from the next note. A whole step up from C is D. Whole step up from D is E. Whole step up from E is what? Well, E up to F, that's a half step. Up to G is 3 half steps, so we have F sharp. So scale degree 7 should be F sharp. We have to use an accidental to make it appear as an F sharp, so I'm going to draw that in. So far, we have talked about music in the key of C major or C minor. Now we're moving into different keys. So what a key signature is a tool we use so that the scales we construct on a staff, if they're not written with their root as C, but rather any other note, can follow this formula of 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1 for a major scale. So we have an F sharp here. We have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and once again G. And that F sharp is indeed 1 half step below G, as this 1 indicates. So what we do in the key signature is simply to put this accidental way over here at the beginning of the music. And this tells us that throughout this entire piece of music, unless otherwise notated by a natural sign or a key change, that F's will be sharp, and it points us towards the key of G major or its relative minor. We'll get into what a relative minor is later. Now, alternatively, how you can think of this is the last sharp. So if there's more than one, the last sharp, seeing there's only one, this is both the first and the last one, is your leading tone. And you know that your leading tone is 1 half step below your root. So if you want to know what key you're in, the way you read this is, alright, this is F sharp. What's 1 half step above F sharp? Well, 1 half step above F sharp is G. So if you want to know the key based on the key signature, you kind of go 1 half step up, 1 half step up is G, and you know that your root is G, and so you're thus reading a piece of music that's in G major or its relative minor. So this key signature is telling us what notes to alter so that we follow this formula. I'm going to erase this now. If you don't have it down, please write that down. Alright, now while that's drying, in music we have up to 7 sharps and up to 7 flats. So that's quite a few key signatures, some of which are enharmonic. And if you remember back to what enharmonic is, an enharmonic key signature has the same sounding notes, but they are spelled differently. So, for example, a C sharp major scale is the same thing as a D flat major scale. Now, because we have so many sharps and so many flats, we have to write them in a certain order. And I'm going to show you what that order is. The order of flats in music is this. And if you can remember this, the order of sharps is exactly the opposite. So order of sharps is F, C, G, D, A, E, B. So the way I remember this is bead and then G, C, F. And if you're a math fan, greatest common factor. However you can remember this, if you remember the flats, I find it easier to remember than the sharps. And then you just flip it for the sharps. So if you know one and you remember that they're the inverse, you can remember the other. So we shall do And not only do they go in a certain order, but they also go in a certain order when you write them on the staff. So I'm going to draw up a staff now. And the order is the same as they're written there, but it matters where you put them. Because if you notice, there's 2 Fs on this staff, if it's treble clef. And it, just as a convention, we always do it the same way. Order of sharps. I'm going to, this double line indicates a key change. So this is sort of neutralizing all of these sharps, and now we're going to do the same thing for the flats. And I'll write those in a different color. I had thought I was missing a line there. Alright, so we have B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, F flat. And this pattern should look the same when you go to bass clef. It's just transposed down. So F sharp will be on the 4th line, etc., etc. Alright, so I think that's enough of this. Now we're going to move into how to construct the minor scales. And there are 3, the natural minor, the harmonic minor, and the melodic minor. Okay, so I'm going to write up the 7 scale degrees of the major scale as a general cliff note for us up above. if we're thinking about a major scale, we have 7 unique degrees. Scale degree 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we are going to use that as our starting point for constructing the minor scales. And we're going to start with the natural minor. Now for convenience, we're going to stick in the key of C, and we are going to be writing the natural minor, C natural minor, which is parallel minor of C major. Now to start, I'm going to draw up a C major scale. And we'll go back to tonic. C major scale. Now, the natural minor, and we'll call it C minor. Remember this M, lowercase m with a line above it means minor, has a few things. It has a flat scale degree 3, and we use this little arrow to indicate lowered scale degree 3. You could also call it a flat 3, flat degree 3. A lowered 6, and a lowered 7. And same thing here. Call it flat 6 and flat 7. So where's our 3? We have C, D, E. E is our 3. So E natural would be part of the major scale. So we want lowered 3. And how do we lower a note? We put a flat in front of it. So we have scale degree 1, 2, lowered 3. Standard 4, standard 5, standard 6, standard 7, and 1. So we still have to lower 6 and 7. So 6 is A. We'll put a flat in front of it, A flat. And lower 7. There is B flat in front of it. So if you want the key signature for C minor of the natural flavor, if you will, we shall write in flats, and we shall do it like I did previously in the correct order. So if you count the half steps, we can construct another sort of C natural minor phone number as we did for the major. So we have between C and D, there's 2 half steps. D and E flat, there is 1 half step. 2 between E flat and F. 2, 1, 2. And then we are at F, F to G, that's 2, G to A flat, 1, A flat to B flat, 2, B flat to C is 2. So if you notice, and this is something that's true for all 3 of the minor scales, they start off with this 2, 1, 2. So I'm going to play for you a C major scale. Now I shall play the C natural minor. So it doesn't matter what minor you're in if you hear this. That gives you a hint that you're in a minor instead of the major. Okay. Now, so this is natural minor. We'll put NM there for natural minor. Now, what if we go to the harmonic minor? And this is a very cool one. This is one of my favorites. I love the way it sounds. Sort of has an Arabian sound to it. Reminds me of Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade. Well, it still has to have the flat third. All minor scales do. But it's a little different. So we'll call this C harmonic minor. Alright? And we still have 1, we still have 2, we still have lowered scale degree 3, we still have lowered scale degree 6, but we have standard scale degree 7. So we're going to get rid of this flat on the B flat. Alright, so we're back to a B natural. And because it's in the key signature, we'll put a natural sign there. Now there isn't really a key signature for C harmonic minor. Rather, you write the key signature for the natural minor, and then you use accidentals to alter the notes as necessary to achieve the right formula. So now let's play this one, and I think you'll like it. That sort of pull by the leading tone there. Very cool sound, very unique, and you know it when you hear it. So that's harmonic minor, and let's figure out the formula for it. We'll move down here now. Harmonic minor. And it still has the 2-1-2, so that hasn't changed. But what about this? So 2, 1, 2, F to G is 2, G to A flat is 1. There's the chalk, at least once per every video. Alright, now A flat up to B natural. A flat up to B natural, we have 0, 1, 2, 3 half steps. So 3, that's sort of unique, right? We haven't seen that yet. And then, of course, B natural to C, there is 1 half step. All right, and that's harmonic minor. Now, for all of these so far, major, natural minor, and harmonic minor, the scale has been the same ascending and descending. The last scale that we have, the melodic minor, is different descending than it is ascending. So we're going to start off Alright. So we have C, and we'll call this melodic minor. So for the ascending part, we have lowered 3, and then we have regular 6 and 7. So the second half of the scale actually sounds like a major scale. We have standard 6, standard 7. But for the descending scale, we still have lowered 3, but now we have the same thing as the natural minor. We have lowered 6 and lowered 7. Alright, so I'm not going to draw this out for you, but I will play it for you. So here is the C melodic minor ascending scale. And now C melodic minor descending scale. And I will play them both together for you. Alright. So as it turns out, and we'll write this in the last place we have room, we'll write it here. The melodic minor, the phone number for this is, of course, again, 212, as that is always the same. But then, for the ascending, we have 2221. So this last half looks like the major scale. and I will let you figure out what that is in the descending scale. If you just map it out on a piece of paper, if you write out the ascending and descending scale according to the formula here and this little chart, and then you count the half steps, you can figure out the descending formula as well. So now I'm going to get rid of this. If you need to write it down, please do so. This is very important. It is actually quite useful when we come up with songs. All right. And again, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. This is a private video, so only people who have the link can see it. And so no one aside from myself will see your comment. And I bet you thought we were done, but now that we've covered major and minor scales, scale degrees, I want to move into triads. So a triad is simply a 3-note chord. Triad. Kind of like when we talked about intervals and we talked about harmonic intervals as opposed to melodic intervals. You have 2 notes stacked, that's a dyad. Everyone's favorite chord, the C major chord, is this. C, E, G. Now, why is this major? Well, it sounds major. It has a certain tone to it. It's definitely different than this, and this, and this. So it has a tonal quality that we consider major. But just like we constructed scales with formulas, we can do the same thing with triads. So we have what's called the root, the third, and the fifth. Now these names, the root, third, and fifth, are specific to the chord. They do not extend. So this is not like the third note of the scale. In this case, because the root of the chord is the root of the C major scale, yes, the third is also the third of the C major scale, and fifth is the fifth of the scale. But let's say we're in C major and we put a chord here. All of a sudden, the root of the chord is no longer the root of the scale. So that's important to keep in mind. And this is not a major chord either, and we'll figure out why in just a minute. So if you notice these chords, they're in root position, which means the root is the bass note. Alright, so now that you know that this chord is in root position, it has a root, third, and fifth. Now let's figure out why it's major. Well, this chord is a stack of thirds, right? If we count the interval and we get the number but not the specific quality, we see that it's 1, we skip the D, E, so 1, 2, 3, and then E to G, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3. Thirds. Chords are always stacks of thirds, and then we can always spread them out on a staff or within a score, but when we reduce it down, chords turn out to be stacks of thirds, and they can have different qualities within, and that's what we're going to look at now. So let's think of C to E, and I shall write it over here. C to E. Alright. So if we look on this keyboard, this makeshift keyboard, we have C to E. Let's count the number of half steps. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 half steps. And if we think back to our lesson on intervals, we know that 4 half steps is a, what is it? That's right, it's a major third. And we'll write in parentheses 4 half steps. Now, what about E to G? I'll put this up here. E to G. Well, E up to G, we have 0, 1, 2, 3. If you remember back to the intervals lesson, 3 half steps is a, that's right, it's a minor third. minor third. And that is 3 half steps. So I like to think of these sort of as fractions. And if we think about it, we have for a major chord 3/4. So that is talking about the spacing between the thirds. And really you can think of it as a minor third over a major third, but I like to think about it as half steps. And this chord, as it turns out, is major. C up to E, and then E up to G. Now, interesting thing to note, it's the spacing between the root and the third of the chord that gives its quality. We can't actually tell the intervals. Well, we can tell the interval, but we can't tell the quality if we omit the third. So if we have C to G, we don't know what kind of chord that is. We know that it has very similar notes to a C major chord, but as it turns out, it also has very similar notes to a C minor chord. We just don't know without the third. Whereas if we omit the fifth, we know that that is an incomplete major chord. So the third and the root are the two most important pitches within a chord. Now, what about this? This here, we have E to G. Well, we already discussed that E to G is a minor third. And what about G to B? Well, G up to B, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a major third. Right, so now we have, for this chord, it's 4/3. It's flipped. So let's hear what that sounds like. That is a minor chord, as it turns out. Now notice I'm sticking with the same notation conventions, capital M for major, lowercase m with that line above it for minor. Alright, now, you might have thought we were done once again, but there are 2 other chord types we can have, at least in this video. We'll actually get into more 7th chords later on, but there are 2 other types of triads we can have. Let me get rid of this. Okay, let's drop a staff. Okay, and I'm going to drop 2 different chords, and we shall talk about them in just a minute. Okay, so these chords are already reduced. They can't be compacted into smaller intervals, right? If we move the C flat down here, it would create more space than it would up here. So this is already in its most compact form, so therefore it is in root position. Once everything is in third spacing, you know it's in root position, in this case, for triads. So we know that our root is F, right? We also know it has an A flat and a C flat. C flat's kind of a weird note. It's enharmonically B, but that's besides the point. So let's figure out what the spacing is, and do it before I do it so you can see if you're on par. So as it turns out, F up to A flat is 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 half steps. And A flat up to C flat. So A flat, 0, 1, 2, 3. 3. So now we have our next type of chord, 3/3. It's a minor third over a minor third. This is a diminished chord, and we can notate this as this little sort of superscript degree sign, or we can call it dim, diminished. Now Now, more specifically, if you want to get into note naming, it's either an F diminished, like this, or F dim. Fair enough? Next, once again, compact form, it's stacked as thirds. It can't get any tighter or any close together than it already is. We know its root position, and the bass note is G, so we know it's some sort of G chord, and we have 4 options. Well, 3 so far, but we're about to add the 4th. So, G up to B, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 half steps. B up to D sharp. That's a little odd, but we'll go B up to D sharp. So B, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 over 4, that's our next type. And as it turns out, this is an augmented chord. So we can either indicate this as a plus symbol or as AUG. Either one means augmented. And this more specifically is a G augmented or a G augmented chord. Either notation is fine. I will play through what all 4 chord types sound like now, but what you should take from this is that there's 4 different types of triads and that their formulas are these that we've already gone over. What can you do with that? Now you can construct it. So if I give you the third of the chord, you can construct, if I tell you to construct me an augmented triad and I give you the third, you can give me then the root and the 5th. So let me play each one for you. We've already heard major, C major, C minor, C diminished, and finally C augmented. So the augmented one sounds pretty similar to major, but it has that tension in there that wasn't in the major one. Major, augmented. So from biggest spacing to smallest, overall, augmented, major, minor, diminished. Now, for major and minor, the most important spacing to know was between root and third. We didn't need the 5th to tell the quality. However, for augmented and diminished, we do need all 3 notes to tell the quality. Well, that is the end of lesson 6. I hope to see you again for lesson 7.